All right, welcome back after a little break. Um, I, I say we rock on with the topic of, I'm just going to call it food healers and Operation Stone Soup. and I think maybe Operation Stone Soup could be the big overarching strategy. I'm just saying what makes sense to me, right? Feel free to disagree, edit, add, subtract, multiply, whatever. But what is making sense to me is that we have an overarching strategy which is rooted really in two things: collective intelligence and feeding everyone the right foods. Right? Bam. We start with that. And collective intelligence says, listen, we're not going to get anywhere collectively until we take care of ourselves first. Let's first put on our own oxygen mask as a species, right? And then let's, and then let's take care of Mother Earth as a whole, all species and ecosystems, because a hell of a lot of us are having a hard time being compassionate towards anything but our children's, crying stomachs, right? So let's just take care of all the children and all the people in one fell swoop, and just have that dealt with. And then we can work together in a whole new paradigm as a really united species, really truly united in the most powerful way, and that finally everyone gets to eat, right? When have we ever had a situation where everyone got to eat? Never, right? So that'd be totally new in human experience. So I'm suggesting we make that the initial focus, but then immediately cut from there to SRM, right? Now, granted, SRM isn't as touchy-feely, but it's every microgram as urgent for our survival as feeding people, right? It's like, if we don't take care of that, it'll be a scenario where finally everybody in the boat is fed. Great, hurrah! Right as we go over the edge of Niagara Falls. We finally realize that we need to share the food and share the love. That's great. But let's also be mindful of where the boat is headed. And we're headed over a cliff. And that's Niagara Falls. It's a cliff that has water running over it. And the water is there. It's the inertia, right, of so many greenhouse gases and so many, the 67 self-reinforcing feedback loops as identified by Guy McPherson, right? Thank you, Guy. And so I say the time for half measures is over, just over and done. We need to present the whole solution. And that's what I call Operation Stone Soup, OSS, right? A total solution. It includes the mega strategy and all the major solutions needed. And by definition, everything that's needed, right? And there are millions of solutions needed once you take it down to the local level, et cetera. And we'll come up with them all as a collective superintelligence, totally open source, non-hierarchical, distributed, all those good things, right? And that through that, we achieve, feeding everyone nutritious, vegan food, plant-based foods, and we eradicate pandemics, future pandemics, and we really clamp down on this one by letting people stay isolated, right? And immune boosted and rested, not scrambling around looking for frickin' food. Let's just make the connection. Silas said it so well, right? And we say that, listen, to achieve this worldwide, we need collective superintelligence. Let's do it. Join here, right? And so it becomes a dog whistle for vegans and for collective intelligence junkies like ourselves, right? It becomes a dog whistle for both communities. And what a beautiful, pairing of communities, right? I see you got your hand up, Miles. I'm just going to go with my current soapbox if you don't mind. Thank you. Thank you. And, obviously, if you need to get rolling at some point, you let us know. We'll prioritize. Okay. So it's a whole solution grounded in collective super intelligence and, you know, much more to say about that. But I think what's really interesting is where the laser beam is pointed, not the inner mechanics of the laser beam machine, right? And so if we pointed at the virus and at hunger and at malnutrition and at carnivorism and et cetera, then I think people will just fall in love with this new laser beam, right? And then we pointed at SRM, right? But those are really the two big stories: feed everyone, cool the planet, right? And then there's a lot of details under each of those, but those are the two headlines. And the whodunit is collective superintelligence, right? That opens the door to that topic. Right? And, you know, but really what you're drawn to is that we're feeding everyone plant-based foods and cooling the planet, right? Those are really what people are going to fixate on. And then the who is, you know, all of us who are doing it. And a lot more to say about that, particularly in, with particular emphasis on this notion of a federation, which we talked about hours ago, and I'm happy to get back to. A collective superintelligence based on a federation, or built on a federation of online communities. This one being one example. And there's, you know, probably tens of thousands that are relevant, you know, to what we're talking about. So let's round them all up, right? And as a federation, let's go after some of these really big goals together, and really show the world collective intelligence in action. And in the process, you know, attract that many more people. And then we'll, you know, among thousands, tens of thousands of users, right, members, will, in the federation, right, not in Radish, but in the federation, we will have, you know, hundreds of coders amongst them, right, who can do amazing things. And so that'll start a really incredible virtuous cycle. But that's, you know, that's, you know, that's a little bit deeper into the details. The headlines are really simple. Collective superintelligence sets its sights on feeding everyone and cooling the planet. And it's starting right here in this one city by feeding everyone in this city. And that shows that we're not just talking about some pipe dream. We're actually boots on the ground doing it right now. And the press conference happens concurrent with a whole bunch of kitchens operating full capacity and delivering food to the city. That's just hearing about it for the first time, along with the rest of the nation, along with the rest of the world, right? So that sums it up, right? Feed everyone, cool the planet with collective superintelligence. And here with the details about where we're starting right here in this city. And at that point, they're like, whoa, you know, and we answer all the questions they have, or we pose them and then we answer them. But anyway, I'm a bit long-winded, but I think you get my drift. And Miles, thank you for your patience. Thank you all for your patience. And I know you're off camera, Miles, but whenever you're ready, just feel free. No hurry.
Okay, yeah, so great. Yeah, so the feeding people, the app as a public service platform for communicating, you know, everything that you were talking about, you know, the need for collective intelligence, the need for solar radiation management, all these are critical public service announcements. And as we've said before the break, Sarah brought to our minds, let's not think anybody's going to be embracing the concept or the app as soon as you bring in the fact that we're talking about changing people's diet. And when I said diet industry, I mean that we are being controlled by powers that wanting to keep us on processed foods, meat, cheese, dairy, eggs. And so I would say collective intelligence really requires, it needs to move on two fronts. As is it Marvin or Melvin was talking about the people?
Melvin.
So Melvin said, like Dr. Nake is saying, we've got to always remember that the people, the masses, and they're more and more becoming less enfranchised, greater amounts of poverty and inequity. So great press conference with city mayors, government jurisdictions, but equal press conference for the masses, because the business as usual inertia to shut down the concepts that we're talking about could be tremendous. So that's the point I wanted to make. So an example of the control is the local climate group that I've been partly involved with. Here's their three big concerns. Getting free transit for people. Yeah, free transit, great idea. And they're concerned, number two, about green stimulus funding being provided by government. That's their number two concern. And then number three concern is that the city only builds net zero buildings. So how's that going to actually prevent the collapse of the planet? I don't think so. Great ideas, but they're nibbling at the edges. And I'll just add, their number one fundraiser that they were gushing about how successful it was in bringing in some cash to the organization was a wine and cheese and charcuterie. And charcuterie, if you look it up, is all about serving sliced meats and deli sandwiches and bacon and such. So anyway, their sponsor is a solar panel company and some other people, but I don't know how receptive. I'll just summarize. A lot of non-governmental operations, NGOs, I think they would call them, and government themselves are captured agents. And I think Michael Moore's latest documentary with Jeff Gibb, I think his name is, it's titled Planet of the Humans. It really exposes that these so-called environmental groups are blinded by who funds them. So really have to have this app. It's like, this is also for as much for the people, and put as much effort in reaching them as we do to try to convert any mayor that they should be on board, because they very might likely say, oh, we don't want to go there. And upset our contributors, our funders, our campaign contributors and such.
Good stuff, Miles. Love it. Indeed. People don't generally bite the hand that feeds them, right? But anyway, what's fascinating now is that I think so much of animal agriculture is just crumbling on its own in the face of the pandemic and all the shockwaves throughout the food networks, food service, restaurant industry, et cetera. And there's a famous quote, I think, from Napoleon, Correct me if I'm wrong, but never interfere with the enemy when they're in the process of self-destruction, right? Now, I'm not saying, hey, apply that literally 100% and totally take our eye off the ball as regards to, meat and dairy industries, but rather it's just a point of view. It's a perspective. And also, but I think marry that with where the real opportunity is, which is the press conference, which does not even take direct aim at meat and dairy. We just know they're going to come up in opposition, and we need to be ready for that. So let's think deeply about it. No question, right? High priority, right? But, let's put it in the parking lot and let the sleuths who like to think about strategies for how to deal with the meat and dairy industries late at night, let them do that late at night thinking, or, we can set aside time to talk about it. But, I think that's just a long, intellectual pathway that I think is best taken as a homework assignment, frankly. And we can touch on it from time to time. So I'll just kind of put like a parking lot of interesting things to make sure that we don't forget. So meat and dairy industries, preparing for their opposition, right? But then beyond that, I say we keep our eyes on the prize and head straight for the goal, head straight for the end zone. Look, we're here to feed everyone, right? And look, let's face it, with that, we're going to win people's hearts. So no matter what opposition the meat and dairy industry tries to leverage, if they do so publicly, right, which would be the most powerful form of their opposition, I'm just going to ask a rhetorical question. Do you really want to be, throwing bricks at the Superman who's feeding the hungry kids? Buster, right? You might have a bunch of angry moms with hard-hitting wooden rolling pins cracking your skull in so that, the Operation Stone Soup Food Healers folks, don't even have to deal with you. You're just gone before they even heard about you, right? So do you really want to mess with Superman who's feeding the hungry kids? Come on. So, it's like, whatever that brilliant.
And so that's really got to be a big part of your press conference, right? And the packaging.
Well, the packaging
right up front, they're going to be like, oh boy, yeah.
Well, no, because see, we're going to send a shockwave first throughout that city, and then throughout the nation, and throughout the world. Jackie, sister, good to see you. Including Cork, Cork, Ireland, whatever town in France. I don't care if the town has 2,000 people population, right? 1,980 of whom are quite adequately fed, and there's just 20 people that are struggling, and they feed those 20 and cha-ching, they get the gold medal. Hey, go for it, right? France on the map, right? So, and we'll have a running list of countries and all these mayors, and we'll do all these Zoom video conferences so that we're all supporting each other. And watch these two communities come together, kind of like a mixer between an all boys college and an all girls college, and they get together on a Saturday night for a dance. Woo! Right? Let's bring these two communities together and see what secret love children come out of it. What are the two communities? Vegans and collective intelligence junkies. And because we're going to bait, I'm sorry for the analogies and everything. I'm kind of glad Sarah's on break, but don't tell her I said that. But we're going to bait two hooks and put them in the water, right? Vegan bait, and we're attracting floating plastic. Let's put it that way, right? So there, Sarah. Okay, anyway. So we're going to bait two hooks and put them out. One for the vegans, one for the collective intelligence junkies. because that's the message. The headline is going to be really simple. Collective superintelligence takes on feeding the world and cooling the planet. Right? That's just such a double wah-cha, right? And then you're left with the burning question, who was that masked man? Right? So, you know, the entity, right, that's doing all this will be known and defined by what it does, not what it says, but what it does. And what it's doing is taking on both feeding the world, making sure everyone is fed, and cooling the planet in time. And then who was that masked man? Collective superintelligence. It's all of us. 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 Imagine going boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. Elder, child, it's all of us. It's all of us. And it's like a YouTube video that just goes freaking viral. Because you could probably pack 200 of those in 60 seconds. It's all of us. It's all of us. It's all of us. It's all of us. Well, maybe not 200, but certainly more than 60. Right? And then you just see the faces of the world. We've already had close to 20 countries participating in the block party. I think the Canadians are in the lead, led in turn by Miles and Emery, right? Oh my goodness.
Well, Ireland is well represented too. So
No, my goodness. No, Ireland is a strong number 2.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, but shoot, you know. So this, so when the question is, who are you? It's all of us. And then at the end, it could be like a 4-year-old girl saying, "How about you? Will you help us?" Could be Greta Thunberg saying, "How about you? Will you help us?" And then the call is clear. What do I do? Get on join the collective superintelligence. Join the conversation. It's that simple. Join the conversation. That's the action item, right? You know, one of the reasons I jumped into the cannabis sector and created the first premium internationally recognized brand of cannabis, Diego Pellicer. And by the way, that's in the wallpaper behind on the press conference with President Vicente Fox. That's the logo on the brand. Was because I was inspired by Rick Steves. Raise your hand if you know who Rick Steves is. Okay. So, okay. All right. So Miles does. I'd say that's probably pretty representative. So bottom line, you know, double-digit percentage of people know about Rick Steves. He is the travel guy, and with a focus on European travels. He's done Ireland, actually, shows about Ireland, and anyway, he's a super nice guy. I actually know him, and I'm like really close friends with his family, his immediate family. But independent of personal connection, he had taken a stand about ending prohibition of cannabis years ago, many years before I started, and is on the board of NORML, and on his website he had this posting that said, "Marijuana, it's time for a conversation," and that drew me in. And guess what? People like me are part of our target market, right? And so the call to action is join the conversation. Whether you agree, whether you disagree, whether you have something new to add, whether you want to build on something Miles said, whether you want to meet Miles and say, "Hey, I'd love to jam with you. I really like what you said about Calgary and this and that. You know, I'm a couple towns over, and great, you know." So for networking, for, you know, finding your niche, because this is going to explode into this network of conversations. It's happening. And we get to shepherd it along. And we get to do the press conference that announces the whole of it.
Now, with respect to the press conference, another thing just occurred to me. based on what you said, which was so important, because the business as usual crowd is very much business. And it's a lot of inertia, and it's a lot of big money, it's a lot of men, it's a lot of logos. So the press conference has to attract the mothers, the divine feminine, and those mother bears. Needs to have somebody like Jackie up there too. And the messaging has to blend. It's got to be harmonized, logos and eros. Okay, divine feminine, divine masculine, synchronized.
You know, I've got Jackie right in the middle of my screen, and that's a sign. That's where she belongs, right in the heart, right in the center. So let's have this whole thing led by the divine feminine, right? You know, we got Dr. Priya leading up the medical team, right? A woman of color. And, you know, she's reaching out to African-American female, you know, physicians, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, LGBTQ, et cetera, et cetera. And wow. Holy crap. And suddenly everybody's available because it's by Zoom and everybody lives on Zoom now, right? So this really becomes the first big trick accomplished by the motorcycle of the Zoomosphere, which very few people are aware is rapidly becoming collective superintelligence. We're literally like right in the middle of a wormhole right now, right?
I'll also just like to actually, while I'm thinking of it, commend both of you, Jamin and Jackie. And I gather Stephanie, is she behind the 2 advertisements?
Yeah.
So those are terrific. And I am particularly impressed with the one Jackie narrates. Not to take anything away from you, Jamin, but just a terrific job. And yeah, that's the kind of, Stephanie's really got the talent, right, to you know, produce punchy videos. She'd be great with respect to creating the press conference, you know, like making it pop, I guess is what we might say.
And in all fairness, that the one that I was speaking, and that was all her. I had nothing to do with that. She came to the meeting and brought it as a gift, took that soundbite from a clip. Like I had nothing to do with that. Was all her creation. So it was beautiful, and that beautiful gift that she gave us.
Yeah, this is all coming together. And so, you know, consider now that this press conference will introduce the world to a new category of thing. Okay, remember how like the Apple II broke through and introduced to the world a new thing called the computer, right? Or maybe it was the Apple I, but anyway. You know, there was a moment, I was a kid at the time, so I was just, you know, staring at the cute girl in the 2nd grade classroom, so I wasn't paying attention to any of this. But there was a moment when the world got introduced to the personal computer, the PC, right? It happened. So here's what I'm offering to you all with this. This is a very profound statement. This press conference, done correctly, will be the moment. Here, I got to do this for my sister Jackie because it helps wake her up. This will be the moment. This will be the moment when the world is introduced to the category of not the personal computer, but the mega strategy for saving life on Earth.
That was a mic drop.
Hey, you took the words out of my mouth.
Well, I walked away expecting to hear the applause, right?
Well, I thought it was a mic drop myself.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, I think like obviously when you do you're going to have negative responses, and we all know what reporters' jobs are anyway. What they like to go for: sensationalism, picking holes in things, trying to see the negative sides of things. We have to be just prepare for them. A majority of women on the panel would be absolutely the right way to go as well. That avoids confrontation in a sense as well. Less men, more women. But just have the answers for their responses. They're going to be, the questions are going to be, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? What are you proposing? Now, how do you propose this is going to happen? So there's the who, the what, the how, the when, and the why. You know what I mean? There's all these questions are going to be asked. So we just have to be prepared. I mean, as in regards, what are you going to be shutting down all the meat factories? Is that what you're proposing? You know what I mean? That's what you're going to get thrown at you, like, you know what I mean? You know, it's just simple. You just have to say, look, it's plant-based foods we're offering simply for the sense and the science behind it. Like, you know, regarding health, immune systems, possibly averting future pandemics. The food is for hungry people anyway, and not only will they eat it, they will benefit from it in every way mentioned above, like in health and immune systems and pandemics and everything else. And we're not saying shut down any meat factories. That's what we have to make a point of. We're not saying shut down any meat markets. That's heading that way naturally anyway, of its own accord. And for so many different reasons that we don't even want to get into them here. But we'll gladly provide anyone with the info that they need to show that they can see that that's going to happen anyway. That's the way it's going. So all we're doing is preemptive striking with the situation. Save the global, save the hungry, save the world, and be one step ahead of the pandemics and the global warming and the crisis. We have to be intelligent human beings here. So we want to be 10 steps ahead. We need to be like Native Americans, 7 generations ahead. That's what we have to be thinking about. So
Yeah, the children, health and science. Yeah.
In the story. That's why we're here. That's what we're proposing. You can knock as many holes in it as you want, but it don't matter what. A sponge still holds water, no matter how many holes are in it.
Brilliant. Do you suppose Stephanie could capture that in like a short video?
I'm quite sure she probably will. I'll have to send her no message anyway. I think she's probably taking a break. She had to go out early this morning. She had to go to the hospital herself, some tests herself. Funny enough, father and daughter both went to the hospital this morning. But I was going to dental hospital. But yeah, she's good, all good. We all got good. No, we both had to go. We both had issues, but we both came back with positive outcomes anyway. Thankfully, thanks be to God. So all good.
Good. Thanks be to God. Awesome. Wow. But really, you nailed it there, James. You just totally nailed it. And so what's going to happen at this point, right? Just like what happened with the personal computer. See, at first, it was literally a doctor from Georgia, right? Or no, he was going to be a doctor, but he got sidetracked and started messing around with electronics and came up with the Altair whatever in 1974, right? That no one ever heard of, but that's what caught Bill Gates' attention and Paul Allen. And so they went to New Mexico, where this dude from Georgia had set up shop, and they wrote up the operating system for the Altair 2000 or whatever it was called, right? But no one ever heard of that. But then, time passed, and along came the Apple II in 1976, and then along came the big kahuna of IBM got into it. So the moment happened, the personal computer happened. It's debatable when it happened, but it was either Apple I or Apple II, 1976. And then IBM got in the game, and then it just went gangbusters. And that's why we're on video conference right now, more than any other reason, right? PCs preceded internet because it's kind of hard to have an internet on your grandfather's clock. You know, it's a beautiful clock, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of hard to make an internet off of, you know, clock pendulums from Germany made in the 1800s. All right. So anyway, that was the moment. You know, that was the tipping point that kicked off so many other tipping points that brought us here, right on the cusp of collective superintelligence. All right. So anyway, but back to the metaphor. There was a moment when the world got introduced to the PC. There is a moment when the world is going to be introduced to the mega solution, the category of the mega solution. Now, there are big mega solutions. There are small mega solutions. There are portable mega solutions. There are giant mega solutions that, you know, take up half your office, right? There are mega solutions that fit on your wristwatch. But there was a moment when the world got introduced to the mega solution. And that's this press conference. Feed everyone, eradicate pandemics, cool the planet. Right? That's the opening salvo. Right? That's like the beginning of the James Bond movie, at the end of which James Bond goes, "Yeah, that was jolly good exercise. What's for dinner?" You know, this is just our opening act. You know, get smart, you know, feed everyone, stop pandemics, and cool the planet. Da 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 da. And then what? Oh, well, we've got a whole bunch of other stuff to do. Da, da, da. You know, transforming agriculture and transforming this and all this and all these deep-rooted transformation, going from, you know, from high carbon footprint, extinction, generating living arrangements to arcologies, organic vegan arcologies, pedestrian and bicycle friendly, minimal use of freaking cars and trucks, only for what's necessary. All right, you got a whole bunch of broccoli that needs to get into the center of town so people can eat. You want it to be fresh and nutritious? Well, put it on a truck, dang it, with a refrigerator on it, you know, with a cooler on it. Do it right. Okay. So this becomes the platform, the beginning of all these transformations, right? Because here's the thing, to quote, whether it was Karl Marx or some Russian revolutionary, the starving man does not dream of porridge. The starving man dreams of caviar. Right? So people aren't just in the midst of this, you know, pandemic and this and that and economic collapse and planetary overheating. They're just saying, shoot, I wish we could just like dial it back a couple of years. Dial it back a couple of years. You're only 100 feet up the freaking Niagara Falls River, right? You're only going to buy yourself a couple of years. That's dreaming of porridge, dreaming of caviar. Pardon me, vegans. And again, I'm kind of glad somebody's not here. But, you know, the caviar we're dreaming of is a transformed utopian world, right? Where, you know, beautiful young nymphs and nymphsters are walking around with, you know, spotless white flowing gowns and drinking tropical fruit juices underneath a waterfall, right? That's the caviar we're dreaming of. A cool planet, really cool in lots of ways. All right, sorry, I got a little bit stupid creative there, but you get my point. You know, it's like, it's kind of like Logan's Run, except people don't get executed at the end, right? You know, but just a freaking utopia. Yeah, I know I didn't pick the right word there, and so that's a loaded word. Okay, don't get hung up on the word, but get my point. Right?
Utopia?
Yeah.
The word?
Yeah, I mean, it's the wrong word to use, but it's headed in the right direction.
But I like that word. I like the word because that's the way I felt this week. doing the work of service. This is why I enjoy, like Melvin, when Dr. Priya speaks, because we speak to the people. Like, I can't speak to industry, I can't speak to policy, I can't speak to technology, I can speak to the people. I can speak to the utopia that existed within me this week as we were delivering boxes of food. When we were helping Sailesh match up with people so he could bring them food. You know, not only were people receiving boxes of food, but they were also admitting that their refrigerators were empty right now. Thank you for giving me raw, but I have nothing to feed my 4 children. And to be able to coordinate, and this was a coordinated effort. Some of us collected money, then we went shopping, then we made the video, we created the boxes, another person came in and did the delivery. How is that not utopia? When we are coming together without any other incentive but love, with I have nothing else to gain here except to know that you're okay and that your children have something to eat. That is utopia. When I rely on no one else but our neighbors, that we look to one another without judgment. And we say, you know what, you're me. And if you need, I got your back. And for us to look at our neighbors and say, you know, I am safe enough that I can say I need. And I don't have to worry that there's gonna be, you know, all this debt to pay because I put myself and be vulnerable. That's, to me, is utopia. And I think if we speak to the people, especially the people that have suffered, these people that are oppressed, that are repressed with the system that we maintain in place, that we vote in place with our dollars every day, and we speak to them and say, this is utopia. This is the whys we're doing it. This can happen. We can show you how it can be done. We're doing it every single day. And just because it's happening in small little corners of, you know, different cities working together doesn't mean that we can't do this on a mass scale. And this is what we're doing. We're making this on a mass scale. If we can do it with a handful of people, of course we can do this on a mass scale. That is utopia. What are you looking for? Castles and gold? Utopia is when you can look at your neighbor with love and safety and security and take care of one another. We don't have to rely on money systems and rely on anyone else but one another. To me, I love the word utopia. That's exactly what we're creating.
I'm sold. I'm just glad I got you started.
Yeah, and that was brilliant, Jackie, because you are going to get some quick, you know, some reporter's going to, someone's going to shout that question out. What are you trying to do? Create utopia? Well, there's the answer for them anyway.
And also, look at how we just pulled a total Harlem Globetrotters, right? I was just like, da-da-da-da-da, and I was like, utopia, and then Jackie takes, and she's like, what? And we're just like, whoa, you know? And I actually hung out one night with the Harlem Globetrotters. I hosted them in Culiacan, Mexico, drug capital of Mexico, of all places. I just totally ran into them on the street at like midnight, and they wanted to go out and party. So I just took them around, right? And I didn't play basketball with them. I didn't want to make them look bad, but I did know some cool nightlife places to go. And we did some karaoke, and I got up there and sang, and we just had a blast. But Harlem Globetrotters, you know, which and this is collective superintelligence. It's the Harlem Globetrotters of networked conversation. And mark my words, because guess what? We'll be able to talk about this at the press conference. If you haven't seen it yet, follow Sailesh's lead and recommendation. He watched the full 90-minute press conference that President Vicente Fox and I led. 90 minutes. Because here's what happens, and Nolan saw it too. Thank you, Nolan. Everyone, please watch it when you can. It's not like urgent to watch it tonight, but it is such a good model for what we're taking on. And that was literally 7 years ago. So I've had a lot of time to digest what happened, how we did it, right? And what happened after that, including forcing the hands of President Barack Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder. Their hands were forced. And they reacted within one quarter, within 90 days. They gave a public pronouncement, right? Which was just what we'd asked for. So what we're doing now, that was a warm up. This is the big one, right? and with no disrespect to President Vicente Fox or what we did together, that was a warm up for this one. And I said as much at our fourth big consecutive event, the big World Series event of the 3-day conference in Mexico, that again, President Vicente Fox and I co-led. We worked together very closely on building out the whole thing. 3 days was I kicked it off with saying, look, we've got a whole bunch of big world problems we need to solve. We've got climate change, we've got hunger, we've got this, right? And of all these problems, right, which is the one that we should address first? I said prohibition. Why? It's the one world problem that's actually profitable to solve. Whereas all the others cost money, this one is a profit center, right? Because of all the taxes from legalizing and all the money saved from not having violent criminal organizations running the industry, which is a huge multi-$100 billion industry. Gigantic, right? Gigantic. Anyway, I could go on and on, but my point is simply, that was hugely important. And it was a warm up, just like I said, kicking off the 3-day conference in Mexico, right? Which all those combined totally changed the course of history as regards prohibition, right? So now, but that was a warm up for what? Ending hunger and malnutrition and carnivorism, meat and dairy, right? And ending pandemics and cooling the planet and collective superintelligence, right? Go ahead, Jackie. Welcome back, Sarah. Go ahead, Jackie.
Hi, Sarah. When you say that President Obama's hand was forced and Eric Holder, his hand is, can you help me understand what does that mean? What does that look like?
Oh yeah. So here's what it looks like. It looks like, let me find the moment in the video and I'll play the moment that we forced their hand. Okay, let me screen share and I'll just kind of take you on the journey as I figure this thing out. Okay. All right. So, oops, sorry, I got to redo that. Got to make sure I share computer sound. Okay. All right. So, at the press conference,
along with other acquisitions in the works, distribution, light from Washington, D.C., telling us that it is okay to standards to ensure a prosperous and, above all else, safe cannabis industry.
All right, so here's the exact moment where we forced their hand.
We are moving forward. The states of Washington and Colorado are leading the way. We have waited long enough for some sort of a green light from Washington, D.C., telling us that it is okay to proceed. In fact, the silence from our nation's capital has been deafening.
Boom, smack, right across the face. Here we are, moving ahead, and we can't even get a yes or no out of you. We can't get a shit or get off the pot. We can't get jack, okay? So with that, that's like, Muhammad Ali's left jab, bam, now homeboy's staggering, okay? And then I tagged in President Vicente Fox.
Is moving accordingly from worlds north and the rest of the world. So Mexico is becoming the
Okay.
by le-
Now, here is where he knocks Homeboy's head out of the ring at Madison Square Gardens. Once I softened up Homeboy, President Vicente Fox finished him off.
legalizing medical and social use of cannabis. In Mexico, we welcome this initiative because the cost of the war, in the case of Mexico, is becoming unbearable. Too high for Mexico, Latin America, and the rest of the world. The impact in the economy, on income, on tourism investment, loss of talent, and above all, loss of hope, and 80,000 kids dead in the
Bam! That's when Homeboy's head went sailing out of the ring at Madison Square Gardens. Over and done. Right? You can't give us a yes or a no or a nothing. You give us silence while we're dying. This is the former head of state of the second most populous country on our continent. Our neighbor to the south, our biggest trading partner. It checks all the check boxes. Former head of state comes here and together with the Bill Gates of Bud, forces the hand of the Obama administration, right? It's not the size of the mosquito. It's where you sting, Homeboy. And we got him right in the center of the eyeball. Ouch. So they reacted and they did the right thing. They took the allotted, internationally recognized, 3-month, 90-day grace period for them to get their act together since we had sent their heads sailing out of the ring, right? But the reaction, so at the press conference, sitting to my right was President Vicente Fox. To my left was John Davis, drug policy expert, encyclopedic knowledge. He can cite chapter and verse, and a super nice guy. Anyway, and he was one of my main partners in the business. And so in the following couple days, right, that weekend, I said, John, what's been the reaction of the drug policy community? Because it's this whole international community. And he in turn had asked that question of several, really super dialed in policy wonks, who are in the media and this and that. And he said the reaction of the drug policy community, and this is exactly what he did. I'm not just doing this for you, Jackie, but I'm kind of happy I can do this for you. So he said the reaction of the international drug policy community to that press conference was this. And that drove the conversation. It became the conversation. We took over the freaking conversation. And that was part of a 4-stop rampage international tour where we continued to rattle the cages all the way to the criminal drug cartels who rattled our cages back in return. Right, but that's another story for another day. But
you would say that this press conference it's not about rattling anybody's cage necessarily, is it?
Well, see, that's the cool thing here. It's really not about rattling anyone's cage directly. In this case, it's very indirect. But what this does is it very indirectly drops a Wile E. Coyote-sized boulder on top of the Trump administration, because it shows a logical, sensible, well-executed, well-marketed, well-led, expertise-driven, doctor-driven, right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Doctors are the universally accepted clergy. I don't care if you're an atheist, Catholic, doctors are the universally accepted clergy, right? So
Guess what I'm just thinking of is that in the case of that message and that press conference, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're specifically trying to reach the United States government through the press to change the government policy, whereas here we're trying to reach the people.
well, it's interesting. You have the intended audience, and then you have the unintended. You have the apparent audience, and then you have the intended audience, and those are very often two different things. In both these cases, those are two different things. In
Say
the
that again. Do you even say that again about the two audiences?
Yeah. So the apparent audience and the intended audience are two different things, right? And the apparent audience for that press conference was the Obama administration, right? And but the intended audience was local media, national cannabis media, international cannabis media, international subject matter experts, right? And the entire cannabis industry, all the players, right? And in the case of the, I'll just call it Operation Stone Soup as the placeholder for the all-encompassing, single tent that we're going to pitch, right, to cover the whole of everything that we're doing: collective superintelligence, cooling the planet, feeding everyone, ending pandemics, going, plant-based, etc. So Operation Stone Soup, or OSS, okay? So in the apparent audience for OSS, right, would be, I'll just keep using the convenient example of Louisville, Kentucky. The apparent audience is Louisville, Kentucky, right? Like, we're talking to Louisville. We're saying, hello, Louisville, guess what? Here's what's going to happen. Here's what we're doing, da-da-da-da. We're talking to Louisville, right? But the real intended audience is the world. Every last government, every last nonprofit, every last doctor, nurse, every last food bank, every last church, every last YMCA. Boom, right? So, and, we don't make any secret of the fact that our intended audience is everyone, but we do put particular focus on the city where we're operating, because then as soon as we leave the press conference, we take them on a tour of restaurants that are going 100% capacity, 3 shifts if necessary, turning the truckloads of donated rice, beans, potatoes, produce, and, all the specialty seeds and nuts you can imagine. We'll be making super powerful smoothies, refrigerated smoothies, delivered fresh. Why not? Fresh from the farm, right to the Vitamix, right to the refrigerated container. Vámonos, right? Yes, Jackie.
So are you saying that that's the plan as of right now, that right after the press conference, we want to have that already set in motion so that we can go from the press conference to give them a tour, or eventually after?
No, it should be immediate. It should be immediate, because this is going to be Operation Shock and Awe. Operation Shock and Awe, where, we shock them with the press conference and the news and the enormity of it. That's where we launch the category of the mega solution, right?
So is the press conference, just so that I'm clear, because I'm so new to this, so the purpose of the press conference is to announce this initiative, Or is it to invite the community to see what we're doing and to participate? Is it a little of both? Are we really just kind of saying, we don't give a damn, you haven't done anything, we're doing it, and we're just here to let you know that we're here to do this because none of you have done what you're supposed to do, so we're stepping in and taking the place.
It's everything except the very last thing you said. There's no negativity. The negativity is implied, right? In the case of the President Vicente Fox 2013 press conference, we got aggro and we got in their face, right? But in this case, we're not trying to make enemies with anyone. It's all very subtle, very subtle. It's so subtle, right? We're not even trying to pick a fight with meat and dairy, right? In fact, the very fact that it's plant-based is one notch down from headline. Plant-based doesn't even make headline, right? It's very first paragraph. Don't get me wrong, but it's not headline. Why? Because to make it headline would be just to give them a bloody nose in public, right? And we don't want to do that, right? We had no problem giving President Barack Obama, a very popular second-term president, right? We had no problem cracking him in the face publicly, but that was a different story. He needed the wake-up call because kids were dying. In this case, the world needs a wake-up call because species are going extinct. But we're coming at them, as we say in Spanish, Jackie, por la buena y no por la mala. We're going on the good side, not the bad side, right? The carrot, not the stick, right? And
I'm going to leave to keep a good side too. So
hey, and I understand.
Catch you later.
Por la buena, por la buena. Okay, we'll catch you soon, Miles. We'll see you later. Thanks.
See you later, Miles.
See you, James.
So Jamin, it's fair to say that our approach is, to me, the most holistic approach where we're avoiding promoting the vegan agenda and getting that distraction and those, distractions like, making us defend that we're not, what we're not doing. But because we keep addressing the animal rights, the eradicating future pandemics, the eradicating hunger, feed everyone, which is a social justice issue, the health perspective of it, which is a social justice issue, all of it is the first time, it just feels like we've synthesized all of this, and with one message of love and feeding everyone, we will be addressing all these. So how can they argue in any direction when one answer, and I think that's at least how I see it in the notes that I'm taking, it's one answer, it is the solution for it all. And we can challenge that. We can answer any question, any direction you come at us. This solves that. This solves that. It's love. That's the answer. Nothing else. What else is there?
Jackie, you just nailed it. And I hope that video will be captured because if there's one word that will be associated with us and this movement, right? And the press conference and everything, that's it. It's that one 4-letter word, love. And not where you try to hijack it in some totally perverse way, like Coca-Cola and Southwest Airlines have tried to do. Come on. Two of the most toxic things on the planet, right? Superfluous air travel and carbonated high fructose corn syrup beverages. Love? No. This is love. But we don't say it. They'll say it about us, right? It's like when I launched my, entree into the cannabis industry, I was the first person to really do it in a big public way that just kind of shocked everybody, right? When I did it, they called me the Bill Gates of Bud, right? I didn't call myself that. They'll call us, right, the Love Muffin Club. We don't have to all get t-shirts saying the Love Muffin Club, right?
Can I read something really quick? I just wrote yesterday when I posted our most recent segment with Dr. Oscar Molina. We were talking about love and the power of love. from a medical perspective. And it was a really powerful session. And afterwards, I just came up with this to share. I said, love is more than an experience. It is who we are. Love is a frequency with the power to unleash potentiality beyond our wildest imaginations. Love is a superpower dormant within us, systemically and systematically repressed. Love is our higher selves actualizing in this time and place with the ability to profoundly transform oneself and others. Love restores us to homeostasis, which is in alignment with all of nature. We are love, and when we are denied love or deny love to others, especially denying self-love, we stray from our deepest truths and knowing, and we become sick and lost. We do outrageous, insane, desperate, and harmful things because of how we perceive love has appeared in our lives. And I feel this is our opportunity to truly bring back love in its purest state and to show and shine what love really is.
Beautiful. And who better to say that and to talk about that publicly? Read that poem, right? As a prayer, right? Let's do all the amazing things we're doing in the Divine Feminine, right, segment, which is really what kicks off the block party, right? I mean, you know, it's really just a few of us hanging out prior to that, and then bam, wow, right? It just catches fire. And, you know, and here we are 6 hours later, and we're going strong. And good old Miles, he was here for the full 9 hours. He was here from the beginning. And he's like, sorry, I got to take a break, right? James and Stephanie, Emery, oh my goodness, he's legendary. Dot, freaking awesome, right? Melvin. Somebody remind me who iPhone is. That might be Sarah. Anyway.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. But wow. I mean, it's like we've already got the dream team, right? And we put out to Priya, Dr. Priya, you know, I don't know, 10 days ago or so, hey, how about this? Now she's just got like 4 out of 5 doctors who she reached out to are on board, right? Isn't that crazy? This is an indication of the kind of hit rate we're going to get, right? This is a serious indication. The vegans are going to come storming the gates, right? As soon as they hear the battering ram bashing against the gates, right? Even before we've busted it open, they're going to be just, you know, horning in and just, blah! I've never seen a pack of more bloodthirsty vegans. Just kidding. Anyway, but really, and not bloodthirsty, but, you know, committed. Mm-hmm. Vegans are committed. They are nothing if not committed, right? I once heard like a really smart friend of mine, you know, as we've talked about analyzing all these different things, and that person wasn't vegan, right? But he was talking about someone else who was trying to be environmentalist or whatever, and he said, listen, if they're not vegan, I'm not even going to listen, right? They can just shut the hell up, right? They want to talk environmental stuff, but they're not vegan. No, I'm not even listening. And this was coming from a non-vegan. So when people hear that vegans are in the house, right, driving this incredible initiative to feed everyone and end pandemics, if you're a friend of my grandson, you're a friend of mine. Thank you. Can I offer you a place to stay? Can I do anything for you?
And you know, I think it's powerful what Dr. Priya was saying about having the representation of people of color on the panel. To have those of us that are represent not only the feminine, but women of color to speak on this. That's why I think, at least from my perspective, having grown up and coming from the communities where now we're going back to serve, I can reflect back to them why we're doing what we're doing and speak their language and help them understand w- the entire enormity of what we're doing and the love and the commitment that we're doing. This is not a handout. And that's at least where I can contribute, is to speak to the people, is to speak to the people who are going to be receiving this gift of love and philanthropy. When Sailesh delivered the food, the woman asked Myra if she was going to have to pay them back. And we both cried, because the joy within our hearts to be able to say, of course not. No, you have nothing to do except feed your children. That's it. Receive the food and feed your children and be well. Oh my gosh, how incredibly wealthy do you feel on the inside? That is the stories we have to share. That is where we have to reflect back to these communities that we're here to help you. And we've been here, and that's where we're coming back. We're coming back because we've been you, we see you, we know that you don't even know that you're helping to keep this in place, and we can help. And so that's why I feel like the most powerful thing is to reflect to the communities. Like I said, I don't have the expertise like everyone else, and you can speak to that. But when you said the intended audience of the world, that's where I'm like, that's where I get excited. I couldn't sleep last night because I'm like, that's who I can speak to. I can speak to the children and the hungry children. I can speak to where you said, you're helping my grandchild. You're my friend. Like that's where makes me so excited.
Well, that's exactly where we need you, sister. Excited and with that beautiful smile and that personality, that heart and soul that just shines through like a beacon in the night.
You're also a great voice, Jackie, for the voices of negativity that we'll have. Like, I mean, there is no greater gift in life than the gift of giving, and that is utopia and love in itself.
You know, for what you just said, I'm actually glad you're off camera, James, because with that beautiful painting, that beautiful Irish painting behind you, and that beautiful Irish you that you are, it's like this Irish charmed spirit, leprechaun voice from above. You know, what is it, Yoda? Is it Obi-Wan Kenobi? No, it's James in Cork, Ireland. Whoa. Hey, sweetheart.
And you know, Jamin, the beauty of it is to see that although we come from different cultures, we come from different races, we come from different parts of the world, we weren't even vegan. We formulated this friendship across the ocean where we have met and realized how we're like soulmates that have, you know, separated, like we said, separated at birth, how much we have in common, how much we see the world the same way, how beautiful and synchronistic our lives are. And just, I mean, we've cried on calls together just with the truth and safety and connection. I mean, due to the collective intelligence. I mean, these are stories that we can share. It's like, I haven't even met these people in person, but I love them and they're my family. You know, this is what we're gifting people. This is the contribution of love that we're offering the world.
Likewise, Jackie. I definitely found a new family here anyway, that's all I know. A new addition to my family anyway, I should say.
This is so beautiful. This is so beautiful.
Well, I have to run and take my dog to the vet real quick, but I'm gonna do my best to hurry up and come back.
Listen, take your time and promise us you'll be safe.
I will. I love you all.
Go slow. Go slow. Go slow. We'll be here. We'll be here. We're just getting warmed up. We're only 9 hours in. Come on. All right. All right, Jackie, sister. Love you. See you soon. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. I mean, look at the greatness that is just emergent from us getting together with this intention.
And the fact that all this is bubbling and brewing and coming together out of just simple conversation. Just, you know, simple, respectful conversation. And look what you can achieve.
Yeah, I would say it's conversation with the right architecture, right? The right framing, the right focus. It's a block party, right? You know, the right mission, the right duration, right? If you're gonna have a block party, make it go all night long, right? And all day long. Don't mess around. And so it's a whole bunch of things coming together, right? The right vision, the right visions, etc. So yes, it's simple conversations, but it's kind of like saying, you know, when they launched the Apple II in 1976, wow, look at the amazing stuff they can do with electricity, right? So yes, it's conversations, but it's conversations that are really where we've created an amazing context and an amazing focus, right? And you know, we've been pioneering this medium for a number of years now, and the theory behind it and the modeling behind it for even more years, right? So yes, it's simple conversation, but there's a tremendous wealth of context and intentionality, and you know, and all of our paths, all of our life journeys that have brought us here, right? Because you know, to spend your Friday in a meeting, right, that just goes for hours and hours and hours, right? I mean, we're now 9 hours in and nobody's breaking a sweat. That's a pretty serious filter, right? So who passes through that filter? So it's not just the conversation, right? Simple conversation on some interesting topics. It's the architecture of it, and it's the filtration process. And those of us that have passed through, been attracted to it in the first place and passed through all the filters, and we're still there, you know, in the stream, so to speak. That's extremely unique. In fact, it begs the question, right? If this experiment were run, you know, based out of Moscow, or this experiment were run based out of Shanghai, or Tokyo, right, or Jakarta, or Johannesburg, right, or you know, any number of places, would the results have been different, or would they have been the same? What would the spectrum look like, right? So how much of it is, you know, that we're a really special group of people, and that's definitely true. And it's a special group of people that's heavily vegan but not entirely vegan, right? And that in and of itself is an interesting, and I'd say extremely valuable mix, right? I mean, we as a movement identified the vegan community when neither Melissa nor I were vegan or committed or anything like that in that direction. We were definitely pre-vegan. And we identified the vegan community as, wow, this is the community with the heart, the soul, the love. And, you know, and if you think in terms of you know, collective superintelligence, and I said this explicitly, some of you heard me say it months ago, but if you think of collective superintelligence as a baby, you know, for me, it's kind of like my baby. I don't have any biological children, but, you know, collective superintelligence is you know, it's not just mine. It's a secret love child of a whole bunch of people. But I'm one of those people. And as such, I said, hey, who would I entrust to raise my baby if I had to take a 5-year journey to Mars or something like that? The answer was so obvious: to the vegans, right? To the vegans. To the vegans. All right, Ugo, welcome. Welcome, welcome. So, there's a lot of things that really went right in hindsight as you look at our journey, right? Our trajectory. A whole bunch of things have gone right. And we've also, tried some things that didn't go so right. And so we took them out of our formula, right? And we just kept iterating and we just keep at it. So here we are. So yes, it came out of simple conversation, but this is kind of an example of a much larger concept, which is the architecting and the teeing up and the attraction of people to participate in the conversation. So don't just have a conversation. Don't just go down to First in Main and pop open a beer and just start chatting with whoever happens to be there. Orchestrate it. Get the right attractors, the right filters, the right context, a whole bunch of things right. And then boom, the thing can just explode, like our conversations have and what we've been able to generate. All right. Ugo, how you doing? Oh, you're on mute, and that's okay. No problem. Never.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Well, we're a little over 9 hours in. It's been an hour and a half since we last had a break. I'm kind of feeling a break might be a good thing. It's like once you get past like the 9 hour mark, I think maybe a break every hour and a half or so is probably a sensible idea. You guys know what I mean? Because otherwise you just kind of, all right. Anyway, how are people feeling about it, and how long or short or whatever? What are people feeling?
Yeah, I'm up for a break there for 10 minutes anyway, so I just gotta get. I'm probably only going to hang in for another hour anyway myself, Jamin, because literally I think I've had about 6 hours sleep since last Sunday.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
No. Listen, bro. You go to sleep as soon as you're feeling tired. I don't care how interesting the conversation is. You need your health. You need to be rested. And so really there's nothing more to say about that, okay?
Yeah, no bother. I think I have another hour on me anyway. You're grand.
Okay, perfect. All right. Any other suggestions as to how long a break we take?
I'm fine with 10.
All right, I say we go 15 because 10 is just not quite long enough. Another 5, it's not going to kill us. Okay, so it's 3:19. Let's meet at 35 minutes after the hour. At 35, I'll rename myself to we resume at 3:35 p.m. and I'll stop recording for the moment.